was weird. 2, 1. What's up, everyone? This is Press X to Ramble, the Cyberpunk Apology Edition. We are, as I just said, are going to talk about this whole Cyberpunk debacle and then this apology that was, as Cam said, was actually pushed forward from this Bloomberg article that we're going to talk about. Thanks to Jason Schreier. So with that being said, I am your host for the evening, DJ, aka Sexy Bad Choices.
What's up, everybody? Sean MF Ross. I'm sleepy.
What the sleepy stand for?
Baby done woke up every hour on the hour last night. I'm just fucking out of it.
No, I'm glad. Let me tell you why. This guy, Sean.
Wait. Who are you? You?
This is Cameron. What's up, everybody? I'm back on the podcast because I will never miss an opportunity to dunk on this game. Never. As long as I'm alive, I will dunk on this game. But I'm glad because every time I talk to Sean about my baby woes, Sean's like, I don't have those problems. My baby just went in the crib and just went to sleep perfectly. I've been getting 8 hours of sleep since she's been born. And so I'm glad.
Because we kept the baby out last night till like 9, 10 o'clock. And she was just like, fuck that sleep stuff, yo. I'm trying to play. And I'm Sean Evan Bros. I'm sleepy as F. That is who else is here?
It's your boy Jordan, aka JX Spot, running Ace Attorney, running defense for Cyberpunk 2077. Gonna be a lot of objections in here.
He done changed his whole background and everything for this.
Objection.
Wait, is that your actual wall?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know if that was like a overlay or some shit.
Oh no, this is here. This is here.
That doesn't prove anything. Miming.
Expose brick up in this joint.
Okay.
See? White people taste, black people budget.
So as I said in the intro, Cyberpunk 2077 came out, didn't do so hot. It got a lot of news, got a lot of press, and things happened, and now we are here. Jordan, where are we?
We're with a brand new expose of something that we already probably knew about. A long timeline expressing this game's inevitable failure in a way. Some people still enjoyed it. You know, there's a few articles coming out regarding some prominent gaming figures, not necessarily defending the game, but saying, hey, it wasn't that bad. But given the reality of the majority of consumers, Jason Schreier fell into the multi-pronged expression of a game that was fairly hyped and did not meet the expectations of the vast majority of consumers. So we're going to walk down the line. First off, how do we view this article? Like, did this article confirm, dissuade, or change what you thought about this game as a starting point, guys?
Go ahead, Cam.
Article absolutely confirms everything I thought about this game. Everything. And it's just the way this company was trying to move. Like, they're the size of EA or any other big name company, but only had the portfolio of like one real game that everybody liked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people really liked The Witcher and The Witcher 2, but it wasn't really until The Witcher 3 that this company started popping. You know what I'm saying? So it would literally be like, I don't know, Fallout 3, like Bethesda trying to move like this without having made Fallout 3 or any other game that people know Bethesda for. So it confirms everything I know. And, you know, we can go on from there. But
DJ?
Yeah, I mean, just to go along with what Cam said, like, this absolutely proves my suspicions about the game before it launched. I was super suspect on when they were showing the platforms of like, that's Cam's baby, by the way, if you're wondering why am I making baby noises. I'm not.
I mean,
he was like, trash.
But yeah, like I was super suspect when they were showing the game on quote unquote consoles, and it was Xbox Series X and Xbox One X, and then on the PlayStation side, it was PlayStation 5 and PlayStation Pro. And it was just like, where is Xbox One and PS4? Like, what's going on? Obviously, there was a reason for that. So,
Sean?
I have nothing to say.
Dissuaded it is.
I had hope for the best.
Yeah, this is that all, Sean? For your
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm aligned fairly with Cam and DJ, but at the same time, it's like the rose-colored lenses I had for the majority of this gameplay experience has been pulled back a little bit based on the back-end nonsense that we're going to get into in a second. Because, we are a gaming podcast is going to call out inequities or mistreatment of developers, of employees of development companies, and consumers. So this game has that in spades based on Jason Schreider's expression. So we're going to go into the first part, double dipping. And to increase profits, which does go into a larger conversation of these cross-generation games and how they are handled. So to explain double dipping, what happened on CD Projekt Red was they had developed a target to make sure this game came out on the 8th generation of console, being the 8th generation technically is the Wii U, surprisingly.
Yeah.
The Xbox,
Imagine.
the Xbox One and the PS4, because the majority of US households, at least gaming households, have the 8th generation consoles.
Right.
They made those versions of it, or they ported it to those versions without truly understanding how terrible they were, while at the same time showing the PC version and more powerful 8th generation console versions, as Donald said. Is this a slight against the consumers, my guys? I mean, like, who's at fault here? Which is a stupid question to ask, but how's it make you feel?
I blame Trump. Fuck him.
I mean, that could be the answer for the past 4 years.
This is
Cam,
true.
you're muted.
Yeah, but
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
Okay, no, I got you.
But no. So first, I'm glad this came out because the main argument that came out when this game, and everybody's like, "Yo, my PlayStation is moving like a brick," and everybody's like, "Well, that's what you get for trying to play a next gen game on 8-year-old technology." And then in the article, they were like, "Yeah, nah, we try and put this on 8-year-old technology because we try and get that money." And so it shows that it just shows the level of dishonesty. It also showed that. So, for example, when people were talking about during the reviews that how they couldn't, even on the high-end PCs where the game supposedly runs like perfectly or well, they couldn't use their own footage. Or when people were getting on the Twitch and they were showing footage of the game, how it ran on base PS4, Xbox, and the developer or CD Projekt Red would actively attack those streams, or that that non-disclosure agreement being extremely restrictive. It explains why, because it's like we're so concerned about the bottom line, the profit, and we have all these pre-orders, and the moment people find out what's behind the curtain on this game, we run the risk of jeopardizing all that. And in reality, did it anyway.
Yep.
And so it just shows how greedy these people were, and there was no problem with waiting, because and especially if you look at how this whole production has gone with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, no one would have gotten it by 2021 anyway. You know what I'm saying? So like they had delayed.
I mean, they would have had no way of knowing that.
I mean, honestly, yes. Let me tell you why. So Cyberpunk came out in December, correct?
Yes.
By November, when both next gen consoles were releasing, the main topic of conversation was how hard it was to get these consoles. Like early November, all the way up to December, you knew you were not getting a PS5 or Xbox Series X. And so what would have been the problem just delaying it?
You know what, Cam?
And then even there's no guarantee that even if they were still in supply, like people would be able to get it. Like I think about when I had my PS3 and PS4s were available, it still took me at least a year or two to actually get one. You know what I'm saying? So it's like just because it's readily available doesn't mean that people are automatically buying it. One, because we're in a bad economy,
Couldn't relate.
supply chain issues. Oh, shut up, Sean.
Cam, to your
Yeah, go
point, there could have been a world where they only released it on Stadia and PC, because you can still get a solid PC. Like, we have friends that have not PCs that are not powered by the new NVIDIA 30 series that were able to run this game. So in those high those middle tier PCs were probably only $500. So for those people that really wanted to play it, they could have gotten a PC, and a monitor for about $600 and play it then, and all right, I won't be able to get the PlayStation 5 or Series X version, but I can still play it now given the current technology. That would have been a way simpler solution. People still wanted to buy the Xbox and PlayStation 5, but probably could have opted for a mid-tier PC that would have totally played this game.
Yeah. So
or Stadia.
Yeah.
It runs very well on
Actually,
Stadia.
as I mentioned, in a normal podcast, that my brother-in-law, he got it for PS4 and was like, "Oh, this is cheeks," and then he just bought it again on Stadia, and he was like, he texted me, he was like, "Yo, just get it on Stadia. This is a far better experience," and he had no crashes, catching up to where he was in the PS4 version. It's just yeah, I for me, it was that thing where I felt like if I got it on Stadia, that would have been the only game that I got on Stadia, and I would have played and beat Cyberpunk, and then just did the same thing I did with Phoenix Immortal or whatever, and just ended my Stadia subscription. So that's one thing. The second
you
thing,
don't even need a subscription. You just buy the game as is. You don't need a subscription to play any of the games on Stadia.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just when
buy
Stadia
individual
loads
games.
up, it makes you think that you need to do it.
Interesting. I
When
did
you try
not realize that. Huh.
Kim's like, yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
You
He
idiot.
expresses his disgust.
So the second thing that I want to mention was just to clarify exactly how much money Cyberpunk made on their day one sales. So they sold
ridiculous.
They sold 13 million copies at $60 a piece in the first 10 days after it released.
Hey, that's not counting the extra money from
collector's editions and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sentence alone is the reason why they did all this bullshit. Because it took them, this is saying about 8 years of development hell for this game.
Oh, wait. We'll get to that 8-year thing in a second. We'll get to that in a second.
But
so,
yeah,
it
was clearly a thing where they saw this cash prize or whatever at the end, and they were like, well, we're gonna take hell for this, but we're gonna make sure we get that cash prize.
And I you know what? I bet you a company, a publisher like WB at that scale has something called insurance. To be honest, they probably have insurance when it comes to their products, any type of refund agreement, stuff like that. So there's probably some pretty messed up reasons why they didn't truly took a loss even after the refunds. But hope that story may come out later. So we'll go to the next line item. Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
Nah.
Cool. Nah. So the next one DJ alluded to, Cyberpunk's actual development schedule. It's coming out that this game didn't truly get into its development until 2016. And before the cast, I was talking to Cam about this one segment that directly connected to its original trailer that came out, 2011, I believe, or 2012?
Yeah.
And it had the chick with the mantis blades and her as one of the police officers smirking. Turns out there's a level in Cyberpunk, a mission within Cyberpunk that has you come across that woman, and she's talking about how great it was to use her mantis blades, the thrill of the kill and stuff like that. And we come to learn that the super police can reprogram cyber psychos like herself to work for them. But what I'm trying to say is this was a pretty janky development for at a time that was a critical mission being moved to a random side occurrence. This game was not made over 8 years. It was thought about over 8 years and developed before. What's your takeaway with that, guys?
I would like to say that the game was marketed for 8 years and developed in
An
4
idea,
years.
right?
Yeah. It's
There was no reason to show us that teaser 8 years ago. I'm like, okay, Cyberpunk 2070. I don't know what's it about, but I know, The Witcher 3 is getting good reviews. I don't know if I'm gonna play The Witcher, but this shit looks interesting.
I think it's that thing where hindsight is 2020, right? So in their mind, they're probably thinking like, yeah, like us showing them the teaser 8 years ago, we didn't need to do it. Like it look where it ended up us, right? And I think at that time they showed this teaser and they're like, all right, bet we're gonna get this game done in about 3.5 years. And then this shit happened because that's usually when stuff is shown like that. I think it's it even goes into the article a little bit, but like, those teaser trailers are just a vision of what they want, and they generally have good intentions behind that. And it's just sometimes they hit that mark and then sometimes they don't. And this was one of those instances where they definitely did, or they hit that mark on depending on what console or rig you got going.
DJ, let me just read a direct quote right quick. It's about 2 sentences. Although Cyberpunk was announced in 2012, the company was still then mainly focused on its last title, that being The Witcher 3. Right. Okay. Employees said that was when CD Projekt Red essentially hit the reset button, according to people familiar with the project. So there was probably progress made in 2012 that was deleted in 2016.
Nice.
Okay, well,
yes, Sean.
What was happening in that 4-year gap then if they reset?
So that, we're not gonna. I mean, like what I was saying with the example, we're probably seeing random residuals of work done thrown into the game as side content, while main content probably started back in 2016. Recuperation of Keanu Reeves, Keanu Reeves' character. Keanu Reeves probably wasn't casted until like 2017, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's there's probably two different games we're dealing with here merged together. Unfortunately, which kind of reduced the quality of the product.
So we never got Cyberpunk 2077. We got something else.
A complete an 8-year Cyberpunk 27? No, we got 2 4-year Cyberpunk 2077s smashed together.
So another thing to consider is that they had to actually build a new engine for this.
There you go.
Yeah. So actually, no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, they wrote it simultaneously as developing, which is at the same time. They doubled their developer staff. So they normally had about 240 and
they went to 500.
Roughly about 500, as well as they were trying to get everybody to speak English.
Yeah, wait, hold up, Sean. We're actually about to get to that in 1 second.
Okay, go ahead.
In terms of resources, that's 100% right. I don't know if Cam had anything else to add for that part, but we're going to move over to, I started off with worker treatment, but yeah, treatment's fine. In this regard, and Sean just alluded to that. Video games, as we know, are made across one title can be made in 2 different hemispheres. One title can be programmed and developed in multiple languages. So what happened in CD Projekt Red's part, even though we know them as a Polish developer, they had many American or English-speaking programmers on their staff. So that is one hurdle they had to deal with with developing, and there were instances to which you had Polish-speaking individuals working on specific projects with English-speaking individuals, and there was not too much energy put into translation software or really unifying the team or translators when it comes to issues and product understanding project scope. Another part of it, one that Sean alluded to, was the staffing.
Yeah.
Game of this scope only had 500. If you played a Rockstar game or even a Ubisoft game, they have programmers and developers in the thousands because they need as such to truly bring or rain down a game of this scope.
They understand the scope of work. I think they underestimated how many people it would take to write the code as well as develop the engine at the same time.
Well,
Also,
yes,
one of the things in that with the staffing was just missing out, or I don't know if this was mentioned already, was the departure of like several top developers. So thinking back to Jason's last write up on Anthem, and Andromeda actually too. One of the key things that led to the failure of both of those games was the fact that you lost people who had a core understanding of what was happening with the game, the writing, and the technology to be used. So you think about how strong the writing is in The Witcher, right? And then how cohesive the entire game and the story is. And so to lose people who have an understanding of what it means to take a grand game that kind of scales across two different stories, that understands how choice impacts gameplay and the narrative, how just how cohesive a game of that size is, even though Witcher's obviously not on the same size as Cyberpunk, but to lose like key developers because of the direction of a CEO who's coming in, I mean that's ultimately going to be a big blow towards the development train. So you're starting over from scratch because a new developer comes in, and then on top of that, you're losing senior folks. I mean that's just a recipe for disaster, and we've seen that in both Anthem and Andromeda. And and the thing about what makes it even harder is like Anthem and Andromeda is BioWare, they're known for writing, and those were honestly the key and major technical issues, but those are the key weak points of those series. Was the people who have a core understanding of the audience, how to drive a story, are gone, and that happened here as well.
Gotcha.
Right.
DJ.
I mean, pretty much like it's one of those things where everything's kind of been said. It is understanding the scope of work. It is having those key people guide the work to make sure everything's in place. And it's I don't know, it's just a mess, dude. It's just
I think I think what makes it really hard here is so when you look at other examples like like Anthem and Andromeda, you're looking at it since like, oh, the story doesn't really make sense. Like, okay, I'll keep chugging along for whatever reason. Here, it's like they just took things out, or things just things were happening, and then they were no longer happening, and they were expecting you to continue in the world as if it never happened. So. One of the things that people brought up was in the corporal life path. So life paths were originally supposed to have like this giant thing that influenced the world and all that. Doesn't happen.
A pretty dedicated experience for each
exactly one. But for the most part, it's kind of flavored text. And they mentioned, I know because I played the corporal path, you have your initial boss that you meet in the beginning, you have the agent lady from Miltech, and how those two worlds intersect. But because of whatever happens with the gameplay and game design and time and all that, those things get fundamentally cut out in a way that doesn't make sense. And so in Corpo, your boss gives you this mission because you are like the head of security or whoever that you do, and you have this close relationship, but you never hear about that boss ever again.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it's not like Street Kid where everybody that you meet in the Street Kid path, you still interact with on a day-to-day basis because it's part of Night City. But in Corpo, like, you have a whole corporate life that happened, and those people fundamentally disappear.
You know what? I will see that, and I'll raise you the Nomad path. Which
come on, talk about, because I heard about
more,
it too.
Like it's funny because like when you say that, it's just like I don't even. There's literally like the first 5 minutes of the Nomad path is all you do with the Nomads, and then after that you're in Night City. Like the Nomad path, you basically start exiled from your gang or whatever, and as far as I know, you never see anyone else that was a part of your gang. You never interact with anyone else that was a part of your gang, and then you basically go through the game, and then at the end, like well, I guess for me, I don't. I also didn't beat the game. I'm at the last mission.
Let's
Are you even gonna bother?
Yeah,
I'm
like
not. No. I've removed the game from my console.
yeah, no, like I understand what you both you and Cam are saying. You know, like in terms of not having leadership and that impacting the story. Just to remain to be like stay focused on the development side of things.
Yeah.
Sean,
You're right.
did you have any other points for that?
No, you mean as far as bugs and stuff, or
Well, like in terms of like changes in leadership structure and the impact on the game quality.
I think it just really hampered a lot of shit. They had to cancel so much because, like you said, there isn't a clear line of leadership as to what was going and what was intended, and there was no footnotes left there was no notes left for anybody taking over. It's pretty much F you, I'm taking my ball home.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
And they said, I was just gonna say, and the article pointed out that people who were working on the game thought that the game should have been ready in 2022.
Right.
Mm.
So I'm gonna read one thing from the article itself right quick. It says like this section was labeled treatment, and this is another example of how shitty how entry level, mid level developers can be treated by companies. So they're saying based on Jason's Accord, employees were working long hours, even though the CD Projekt Red's leader said overtime wouldn't be mandatory on Cyberpunk 2077.
Would not be. Yeah.
Mandatory. More than a dozen workers said they felt pressured to put in extra hours by their managers and coworkers anyway. There were times, by an account of a worker, there were times when I would crunch up to 13 hours a day, a little bit over. That was my recorded probability.
Nurses barely do that.
and they're actually saving lives.
And I would do 5 days like that. I have some friends who lost their families because of these sorts of shenanigans. So
that's wild, dude.
Clearly, even though they discouraged overtime work, even though they said they wanted to delay the game, because they went on record saying we want to delay the game, so we're not working overtime and shit like that. We kind of like, oh yeah, we're fine. We want to make sure people don't do crunch. Crunch still occurred. People weren't being adhered to, and overall worker treatment was fairly negative with this title.
You know what? Just to add to that, there was somewhere in the article that was said that when a worker talked to the manager about doing overtime and said like, hey, I don't want to do overtime or I can't do overtime, the manager said to them, all right, well, we'll just give those overtime hours to another employee. And it's just like, what?
And then then your coworker ends up hating you because they're like, well, now I got to stay, in addition to working 13 hours or 15 hours, now I got to work an additional 20. You know what I'm saying? Like,
this cotton got to be picked. This tobacco got to be pulled. We got
like a true 1%er.
We got deadlines to meet.
Well, when you have an industry that's so unregulated in terms of business practices, not in terms of content of the product, business practices, you're going to have this ununionized work, and this treatment is going to continue going forward. And it's very sad.
They need to get a hold of it themselves, the same way they created the ESRB. Before the government steps in, the same way they did with loot boxes.
But
ESRB is it's kind of weird, and I understand what you're saying, and I wish it was like that. But when it comes to like already produced media, like movies and books and those type of contents, it's easier to have like a board say, okay, this is fine, take this out, take that out. When it comes to actual employees and employee treatment, that's like this, states' right.
It's hard to monitor. I get you. It's hard to monitor, especially since
collective bargaining, dues and stuff like that. Like
different countries working on a collective project. So you may have the England office over here working 15 hours a day, whereas the US, they only got to work 8 hours a day. So I get that it's hard to, do some oversight on something like that, but they got to do it before the government steps in.
Yeah. And I remember reading an article on Polygon, which was talking about like, why aren't like these folks unionized? So you remember when the voice actors are like, I'm not doing this because their
Mhm.
their guild or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
how much power they had, and that's why like Greg from Kind of Funny ended up doing some voice acting.
Mhm.
But they were saying the main issue with employees like this is just they don't have that type of power, or what does it look like to command that type of power? Because this work is kind of contracted, or like you speak bad here, you're blackballed somewhere else,
Right.
and so
Good reputation.
Yeah.
exactly versus
The
like.
power's in the managers and not the employees or not the
Mhm.
workers. So
And then the managers are kind of, the carrots kind of dangled in front of them about like, okay, well, if you get this many people to crunch, this is what type of bonus it is for you. And so there's no incentives from the managers to really advocate for their employees.
They
Right.
thank you, Cam. I think this kind of goes. I think we'll switch over to the COVID-19 effect, which I mean, like we kind of talked about that in terms of like everything's virtual now, and I think the language barrier probably would have still occurred, regardless of COVID-19. But if I'm not mistaken, there was a portion of the article that was saying we couldn't get too into the testing of the PS4 and Xbox One because code was being transferred and no one was really like knew where the PS4 Xbox One code was or how to properly test it. So they were saying they had blamed COVID-19 for the quality of eighth generation performance of this because they didn't have quote unquote enough time to test it on those consoles, which I thought was fun. I thought that was BS. Totally. That's my take for that.
Go ahead,
So
DJ.
yeah, like it's BS, but I don't want to sound like a privileged gamer. Like you guys should just be able to do it. Like it's one of those things where
Work.
it's like
Well, they
there-
couldn't play test bills on normal consoles. They had those, development consoles. So they never actually even played it on the PS4 to Xbox One. They
But
just assumed.
here's the thing. Here's my thing to that. Like, yes, that was their situation, but Sony also had Last of Us 2 come out. Sony had Ghost of Tsushima come out. Like, there's been a ton of other games that come out. Like, Assassin's
Those are
Creed came out.
first party, damn near.
Yeah,
Well,
those are
Assassin's Creed
is
Right.
third
and
Well,
Watch
yeah.
Dogs.
But what I'm getting at is that is a call that you make to Sony, like, hey, we are having problems with this. How do we rectify? Yeah, and then Sony would be like, all right, well, we'll call people, we'll figure it out. So it's just like, I don't see how effective this excuse is when we can look at other games.
No, it's unexcusable, DJ. There's no effectiveness to the excuse.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
There's too much empirical evidence proving that
Yeah.
it could have been sorted.
Right. So this leads me to say, like, this is bullshit. Like, you guys are blaming COVID for your own fuck ups, and it's just.
And I heard that so when you look at the process to go gold, right? I remember this discussion on Kind of Funny.
It went gold in November or some shit right there, or October.
Yeah. And so there's been this, I remember hearing on Kind of Funny about this when they were talking about the fallout from the Sony delisting on the PlayStation Store. They were saying like, what's the impact on future games for this? So what I heard from their gone gold process was a lot of that was contracted out. And so if this was contracted out and they just get the green light, like it shows also that this also revealed to like for us that companies like Microsoft and Sony, they don't really do a lot of QA when it comes to like this gold thing. And so I feel like that's going to offer some future backlash or have a future impact on other games.
They were a reputable company. They just assumed they're good.
Yeah. I can actually comment on the whole going gold process from when I was working at.
Come on, DJ, you got the expertise.
I mean, I saw that like checklist. I had to go through that cert process for Rage 2 and Dishonored. And
Rage 2 was great, right?
So Dishonored.
I've been going to so many goddamn glitches in that game. What were you doing up in there, dog?
DJ was like, I hate being here. They're making me crunch.
We just reported the bugs, all right? But yeah, like that it is a very like intensive checklist that has to happen.
Right.
But at the same time, there is a gentleman's agreement between the developer and the publisher in terms of, what has to pass in order for the game to be considered gold, and what can be promised to be fixed in that day one patch.
So, like, here's the thing. Like, when this conversation just was real quickly, Steam and their legacy of anything goes. You know,
Early access.
I mean, I think there's a tighter membrane when it comes to Xbox and PlayStation, but at the same time, there are clearly cracks, or the baseline or threshold maybe is slightly higher, but we're still getting glitchy messes from time to time and have to wait for updates and stuff like that. So in no way is Microsoft and Sony they've never put up a title that's not ready for release, but they are in fact susceptible to it.
Yeah,
and I think this game has highlighted a pretty big gap in their assessment process.
Right, and the last thing that I wanted to add before we jump is that on one side it is like, all right, well, Sony probably looked at CD Projekt Red and was like, oh well, they're a quality studio, so we can probably allow them to figure their shit out. But the other side is that Sony or PlayStation is also getting like certification stuff from thousands of games. So it's that balance.
Your game too, right?
Yeah, my game too. Yeah.
All right. So like, as I think we're about the last few points here, but I had written marketing and game development. I think this game kind of proves how sometimes marketing can be a driver for a game or reputation, be it as Mass Effect Andromeda, and like the past success of the Mass Effect games, be it what else we got here? Anthem, and BioWare's past success. So like
No Man's Sky.
No. So there No Man's Sky. But like there are games among us. Also Among Us, but Among Us actually. But no, like there are games in which marketing is a hard driver to their success, and many gamers end up being hoodwinked, or many news publications are forced to bite the bullet and say, fuck, I gotta give this like at least an 8.5, or they're gonna hate me, or stuff like that. This game.
Or we're going to be blocked out of the industry. We're not going to get shit early anymore.
Yeah.
This game put a cherry on top of that narrative of video games and the susceptibility to being overhyped nonsense and video gamers being hoodwinked to spending their money on something that's not good. But what's your take on marketing and video game development and where we are now?
So let me just jump in. Like, I think the funniest thing, as mentioned in the article, was that 2018 E3 demo, where they literally built that for that E3 showcase, and other than that, there was no game. I think about that automatically made me think of Anthem, because inevitably, whenever games like these fail, people on the internet do a play-by-play of what they call E3.
Oh, they hit you with a did you?
And so this is the case where you cannot believe these trailers, these gameplay trailers for this game. I think the one exception was maybe Marvel's Avengers. Like, that first mission plays just like it showed on E3. It's just the rest of the game is fundamentally just bad.
It was the same thing. It was like, yo.
They made it seem like you were going to be playing those people all throughout the story.
Yeah, absolutely not. And so I think
she'll come out yet.
I think she's out now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No. But I think what this sends a message to in terms of gamers is, one, we should not pre-order anything.
Oh shit! I literally
growing consensus on Reddit.
I literally just pre-ordered Hitman 3, my guy, like this morning.
But I mean, that's a iterative product. Yeah. They've already proven it 1 and 2. All they're doing is literally adding more missions and upgrading the engine. So I mean, nobody would fault you for pre-ordering certain things.
But I hear Cam saying.
Yeah, I mean, but seriously, do not pre-order anything, especially from these AAA games. Whenever you see a E3 demo or an extensive gameplay, you have to go in with the mindset that this is all that the company has.
There's a term for it. It's called bullshit.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think now, looking at like Ubisoft and their whole line of suite and Bethesda now with Indiana Jones, I think the smart thing that it did now is just show like, an extended trailer, a whip, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but now going forward, gamers need to be extremely critical. They can't just buy into the hype, no matter how much you love the concept and the idea, because you can love CD Projekt Red to the cows come home. But the article is telling us, and the reports that we get from the developers telling us, is that they just care about money, and they will build whatever to make you think that something's there when it's not.
Well, I can't say don't pre-order literally anything. There are some people that still have.
I mean, but what is the real benefit of
public
pre-ordering?
trust.
What's the real benefit of pre-ordering anything besides like
like
a T-shirt in a game or a sword or a gun? You know what I'm saying?
To contextualize the pre-orders, I think pre-orders were bigger when we were buying games in person, and
Physical.
they were not digital. So like it doesn't.
And they might run out. Yeah, the first run. I guess.
There was no value added benefit to me pre-ordering 2077 and Donald buying it at 11:59. You know, like there was no value added me having it on my hard drive for an extended period of time. And
think about this: people pre-ordered 2077 in like 2017 before they heard of anything because they just liked the idea.
There were some people that pre-ordered it back in 2012.
People.
How do you put your faith in the idea?
Well, that's the thing. People are it's similar to, you see an idea, you don't know how it ends up, but you want to support it. So you pre-order a game to show that, hey, I am going to be there day one for this game, not knowing that like you being day one is like you being day one at the apocalypse, because that shit.
But now developers are being more nefarious because now they're adding certain benefits to pre-ordering. Now they're trying to like say, oh, you get like this new skin, or you get like this new, boost and stuff like that. It's like there is a nefarious intent to adding.
Well, blame capitalism and shareholders, because they have to do anything they can to get their shareholders more money.
I know.
And you pre-ordering is basically a free loan for them to gain interest.
So
wait, before I did want to say, when it comes to marketing, Cam had mentioned Anthem. I think when you look back at Anthem versus what they were selling us versus what they got, they weren't super far off. I feel like this game is more in line with No Man's Sky, because what No Man's Sky promised was a fucking universe of a game, and when it delivered was like find under a rock, and it was so vastly different from the expectation versus the reality, where I feel like when you look at CD Projekt Red, like they are going to be the warning story, the warning tale of how marketing can be so far removed from the actual game development.
Right.
Because even if they had communicated where the development team is like, all right, Mark, you gotta push back. You gotta stop just a little bit. Like, we aren't, the game that you're promising is not the game that we're currently developing. Like, even when you look at the Night City Wire stuff, like all of that was bullshit. Like all of that was bullshit, because
how hilarious would it be if the game crashed during one of Night Cities? Like if they did it live.
Yeah, because they're running it off of like the highest end PC.
Absolutely.
And they're probably running it off of some military supercomputers. This shit ain't never crashed.
But like that's the thing though. It's and they always made sure that it was short, under 20 minutes. Like it was never extended gameplay. But the thing is, when you go back to it, it's just like that was all marketing. That was just to make sure that the people who pre-ordered the game will continue to keep that pre-order and will buy the game day one, not knowing or understanding that the most likely those people are buying it for the PS4, the Xbox One, and they're going to get a very crappy game that day one.
Right. Preach, DJ.
Yeah.
So here's our final two sections here. That's going to probably wrap us up. So the timeline going forward will be extensive on CD Projekt Red's part. They are having a few more updates this winter and spring. to the current versions. A lot of it's graphical, it's performance. Certain mission triggers or keys that aren't going through depending on the environment, what the fuck's going on. Random shit that should have been figured out before. But based on their timeline, they are saying DLC will come out 2022, maybe.
No, between 2021 and 2022. The free DLC is going to be between 2021 and 2022.
The quote-unquote enhanced versions for Xbox Series X and PS5 won't come out until later 2021. So that being said, are you guys ever gonna come back to
if I get a PlayStation 5, I will go back just to kind of see what the experience is like, so I can get the Sean experience. But
I'd be getting a whole new experience too, though. It's a different thing.
But this is what, honestly, seeing that roadmap pissed me off. Let me tell you why. DJ, you not actually like Anthem.
Yeah.
How long have we been waiting for Anthem's roadmap?
Bro, I'm still waiting.
You mean Anthem 2.0, right?
Yeah, Anthem 2.0. Marvel's Avenger came out this year, last year. It's on a roadmap.
Yeah.
Don't give me a roadmap. Give me the finished game, especially a game that is literally a single player experience that's not designed to be a games as a service.
Right. So roadmaps seem to be more akin to those alpha games as a service type video game experiences.
And so, based off my experience with big publishers like EA and Square Enix or Crystal Dynamics and all that, they don't follow the roadmap experience, and they actually have the financial experience. They have the staff and the resources and the finances to actually fulfill those roadmaps. And so CD Projekt is a smaller developer. That lets me know that this game will not be a playable game or a good game for a base PS4 until at least probably December of 2021.
It may never. Let me tell you what kind of BDE energy that CD Projekt Red got going. And in case you don't know what BDE is, big dick energy. On this roadmap, they only have 2 patches. Just 2. And we're about to get the first one in like a couple days. Based off of this roadmap, this game is going to be quote unquote fine after 2 patches. So that's probably before March. Like, really?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like the roadmap is very vague, and it just shows how unprepared they were, or if they were prepared, how much they agreed with the backlash going forward. They're like, all right, well, at least not the whole company, but leadership is like, all right, we're gonna get this money though, and then we'll work on it later.
And the roadmap shows that the developers and their jokes were correct. It should come out in March of 2022.
Yep. So I'm going to read this last statement from the article. Many of the glitches and graphical issues can be fixed, developers say, though it's not clear what will it take to reign a spot on the PlayStation Store. Because remember, it's still off the store.
Yep.
Winning back fans may be difficult, but there's precedent in the video game world. Games like No Man's Sky, Final Fantasy
15.
That's 14. The eyes.
Oh, you're right.
And that wasn't even bad at launch.
Yeah.
Destiny 1, of course, and other rocky games, rocky launchers. But to a last point, after the video that was debuted, that led to this article essentially made by CD Projekt Red saying I'm sorry, basically the BP video essentially after the Horizon oil blowout when BP was like, yo, we're sorry. Same style, same director. CD Projekt Red's shares rose 6% after that video. So clearly investors are convinced, but we sure as hell not. Any last points in regards to this debacle before we head out?
Oh, easy.
Alexa, play Ruben Studdard. I'm sorry.
Easy. One, going forward, any game that CD Projekt Red releases after this, Sony is going to be all over them because that refund policy. You know how stingy Sony is with their refund policy.
I'll point to that. Remember, I had my information. So when someone bought Miles Morales and Last of Us 2 on their profile. I'm like, I want to have none of those games right now. I don't need Miles Morales. I don't need Last of Us 2. I buy it on my own time. So they handled that real quick. I'll give you like they only handled it because I didn't play a minute of it. That's the only reason why they gave me a refund. I didn't play 1 minute of it, but continue.
But Sony's literally like, you open the game. Oh,
Yeah.
too bad, so sad. And so I think going forward, Sony's going to be all over them when they release.
Right.
The other thing, as mentioned in the article earlier, was that they're not Ubisoft where they're releasing out titles every year. And so for the next game that comes out, people are, I bet you, people are not going to be pre-ordering like they did before, because they're going to literally have Cyberpunk 2077 in my mind. And I think that's really going to impact them on that future title, like The Witcher 4, for example, or something like that. So I think it's going to hurt their bottom line going forward in the future. I think it's going to hurt their relationship with Sony, and I think probably the next game they're better off trying to solidify something with Microsoft, because there were talks about once Sony deplatformed their game, whether it should become an Xbox exclusive, because technically it is. And so, I think we are going to see something of either just fundamentally changing their relationship with Sony, and I think it's going to change their relationship with the consumer. But I think that, CD Projekt Red, they're one of the good guys. We believe in them. I don't think so, my guy.
Blizzard was the same way. Bungie was the same way. But don't trust your heroes, man. They're destined to fail you.
But the difference with Destiny was, it was like, the thing about Destiny is you never saw anything like Destiny when it came out.
No, yeah.
And then when they did the Taken King, you were like, okay, I see where they're going.
And then with 2, they built upon their understanding of that type and what the consumers were able to,
But we all seen a first person RPG before, so it's not like, the scale of Cyberpunk or whatever is a new genius or a new idea, but like we've all seen a first person RPG and played better ones.
DJ?
Again, just to add on to what Cam said, this, I think I have to thank CD Projekt Red.
No. The same way you thank Donald Trump about exposing white racism. Same way.
Yes, you're actually pretty close to what I'm getting at. I have to thank CD Projekt Red, because for the longest time, the game that got all this shit was Anthem. But now
you're replaced
with Cyberpunk 2077.
I'm not the wackest, is what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Most whack.
I think, going forward, I want to say that people just need to be, more responsible with their pre-orders. That's not going to happen because people just get excited for stuff. That's part of the industry.
Especially nowadays, man. You got nothing else to do.
Yeah, it's all about hype. It's like getting people hype, and then getting them to immediately pre-order a game they don't know what they're going to get. I think what it boils down to is that everyone is just going to have to be a bit more, a bit more responsible in themselves and looking at trailers and seeing the bullshit in the trailer.
Right.
Because when this really, like, I want to say, like, from our current generation, the first time this really probably happened was Killzone 3, where we first got that trailer and we were like, "Oh, fuck yeah!"
That was
disappointment.
One of the first games of the HD era. Like no one saw that shit ever. It looked like fucking a Kingdom Hearts cutscene,
bro. Like it was wild when we saw that. And like when the game came out, it was just like, oh. This is what like real sorrow feels like. So I feel like, CD Projekt Red definitely has a long way to go before they get their respect back, and deservingly so. And it's more so like, they need to shit, what is it? They need to earn back our trust. That's what it is.
So, Sean, did you have a last point?
Sean is heartbroken by this.
He acting like he played it on a PS4.
I mean, like, I'm disappointed because I've watched numerous comparison videos, and like I've seen videos where they're comparing it to a PS2 game. I've seen little clips of the physics in GTA 5 and Cyberpunk, and it's like, what was the point? It was fine to try to double dip and get it on the PS4. Whatever, the money is out there. You want to get the largest install base, but why throw your goodwill and reputation that you worked up just under the bus like that?
Right.
I like, people will buy anything from Rockstar that comes out. I think they had a table tennis game at one point.
Yep.
That shit sold like hotcakes.
Hey, that game was fire, by the way.
People will buy anything from Ubisoft. Makes some mediocre games, but I mean, they fucking work.
Yeah, except for Unity.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what the fuck happened with that, but like there was no point in throwing this shit on the bus. They could have delayed it. I mean, they made almost $1 billion off of this shit, and if it was to actually work, they would have, made more.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, like, I think CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077 is a cautionary tale to the gaming industry. There was a time in the history of gaming industry where there was an oversaturation of video game product, and it reached a point to which it was no longer sustainable. Either they had to make the game super expensive, or just game quality was going. I mean, in no way are we going to get back to the 1980s, dark ages of video game development. But I don't think video games are. Sure, I don't think the video game industry should consider themselves susceptible to failure, not susceptible to failure, or falling out of style, because this occurrence will lead it out of style. You will lose the trust of consumers, and it will struggle. But other than that, I think we kind of wrapped up here with the Press X to Ramble. Basically, CD Projekt Red told consumers, "Hey, some platforms just weren't Gucci. Sorry, good luck." And it shouldn't matter if a console's not Gucci enough. Don't have your game release on it.
Exactly, or delay it. Like,
I don't know. DJ, you want to lead us out of this?
But before we go, I want to put this podcast and everyone who's watching on notice. Whenever this game is mentioned, I am waiting to sing in the rafters to the
Are you like Batman?
I know, yeah, like Batman.
Dunk on this game. It every time I see a blue screen, you know how when you turn your laptop off and your screen turn blue or your TV turn blue, I get triggered every single time because I've seen so many blue screens from playing this game. So I'm putting this podcast and everyone will know this. If I hear Cyberpunk, if I hear CD like compact disc, I'm coming on this cast.
You're Pigeon Man from Hey Arnold. If there's a pigeon in trouble, I'll be there. If the pigeon that's hungry, I'll be there. That's basically you, my guy.
Oh, that was a deep cut. Oh my
God. Can't leave the podcast.
Right.
carry my flying PS4s.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been a wonderful episode of Press X to Ramble about CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk 2077 apology fiasco.
We're sorry.
Anyways, we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoy making it. Don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcasting app. Every little bit helps. And after you do that, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and like all of our videos because, again, every little bit helps. In case you missed all these details, you can find all of this and more on our website at pressx2start.com. Until next time, I think we're done talking about Cyberpunk after this, so there won't be any next time on Cyberpunk. Unless they, come back and it's just
until the next overhyped game turns to be trash, we'll be back.
Real cool. Until next time, because we'll be talking about Cyberpunk multiplayer.
Oh yeah, right.
What is the point?
Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
Money, literally do what GTA is doing.
Anyways, we out. Peace.
Peace.
Fuck Trump.